Say Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Bye.
All right. I hope everybody is staying warm and preparing for the crazy week we're going to have. Hopefully we just get rain, but when I say that, then we'll probably get ice. So hopefully it's not as bad as they're saying it's going to be. Maybe it'll change course or something, but I hope everybody stays safe and warm this week. We are going to jump into Ruth chapter 3, and we're going to talk about the first 5 verses. But before we get to that, I kind of want to do, not really an overview, but go over 4 things that we have seen so far in chapters 1 and 2 of Ruth. And the main thing, all 4 of these things have something in common, and it's God working in several ways. And the first thing we see is God working to secure a brighter future for 2 widows, Ruth and Naomi. We see that in, well, we'll just go number 2 because that's the start of it. So the first thing we see is he's going to make sure that Ruth and Naomi have a brighter future, even though Naomi didn't see that in chapter 1 and 2. We will see more of that in chapter 3, that she kind of sees the light at the end of the tunnel, as we talked last week. The second thing, we see that the Lord visited Israel and ended the family, resulting in Naomi, and ended the okay, I'm saying that wrong. The Lord visited Israel and ended the famine. Sorry, not the family. Ended the famine, and which resulted in Naomi going home. The third thing we see God doing is Naomi and Ruth, they did go back home. They went to Bethlehem just as the harvest was beginning. And we covered that a few weeks ago. They could have went home anytime, but they went home just as the harvest. That's exactly when the famine ended. It just so happened it ended as the harvest was beginning. And the fourth thing we see is that the Lord led Ruth to glean in Boaz's field. We don't know if she just happened upon it, if the grain looked better on that field. We don't know why or how, so obviously the Lord had a hand in it. But she ended up at Boaz's field. And so in all 4 of these things, we see God's hand truly at work. It wasn't just a coincidence that all of these things happened. And that's where we're going to pick up with Ruth gleaning in Boaz's field. That's where chapter 2 ended last week. And we read that Ruth stayed there until the harvest was over. And we were left wondering what Naomi would do to help this relationship along between Ruth and Boaz. And now in chapter 3, we're going to see how this relationship develops. So we're going to start in verses 1 through 5 of chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say, I will do." So, a lot happens. It don't seem like a lot happens in these 5 verses, but a lot happens in these 5 verses. And we see here that Naomi takes it upon herself to begin a relationship, to push a relationship, to make a relationship happen between Ruth and Boaz. And I kind of thought about this. The book I told you that I've been going along with Ruth is Bethlehem Road. And Michael brought out a point in that book, and he says, how many times do we think God's not working fast enough? And so we just kind of want to push it along. We want to help things along a little bit. And we've talked about this in Sunday morning Bible class before too. In the women's class, women like to take control. They want to get things done on their time. So it's not going fast enough. This should already been done. I'm just going to help a little bit. God may be telling me to wait, but I'm impatient. I'm just going to go on and help. And I think that's what we see here. Naomi just takes it upon herself. She found out that Ruth was in Boaz's field, and so she's going to take charge, but she has a reason for doing that. Naomi wanted to make sure that Ruth was taken care of, and the only way to do that is through marriage. So yes, Ruth and Naomi have been kind to each other. They've been faithful to each other. They have a great relationship. They are caring for each other. But Naomi's going to die. Eventually, one day, Naomi is older than Ruth. Naomi is going to die. And if Naomi dies, Ruth is in kind of a worse spot than most people. Ruth is a Moabite, and they're not going to take kindly to a Moabite woman being in Bethlehem. Now, if she's married, that's a different story. Her husband takes care of her. But Naomi is thinking about this, and she's looking ahead, and she's saying she knows that she's not going to be around in however many years, and she wants to make sure, kind of as a payback to Ruth, of that she's taken care of. And I think, again, that shows the mutual respect for each other. That shows another reason why Naomi cares as much as she does for Ruth. And so Naomi is, like I said, she's not going to wait on God. We saw last week that, things finally started turning around. She's not all doom and gloom. So now she's up and ready to take charge. So she's going to make this arrangement. And we see here that Naomi is caring for Ruth as she does this. She's not just coming across bossy and telling her what to do. She has a reason for it. And we saw in chapter 2 that Ruth was the one doing the caring, because she was the one going out and gathering the food every day. She was the one making sure Naomi was taken care of. So now it's Naomi's turn to show Ruth she cares, kind of like a payback. In verse 3, we see and following that Ruth is given specific instructions on what to do. She was to wash, anoint herself, put on her cloak, and go to the threshing floor in that order. So, and it's a big deal, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but they had if you'll let me say, a ritual. They had certain things they do, and they don't wash every day. They definitely didn't anoint themselves every day. You don't wear your cloak, and women don't go on the threshing floor. And we'll get there. But that don't stop there. So Naomi tells Ruth, go take a bath, go smell good, go put on your good cloak, and go to the threshing floor. Then, once you get there, once you go to the threshing floor, wait, do not be seen. Do not make yourself known. Hide out, blend in. Don't let anybody know you're there. So it makes me I automatically think of a party, whether it be a birthday party, any type of get together, any type of party, people getting together, any type of fellowship, and when it's a huge crowd, I'm not one to just jump right in and, oh, Paula's here, everybody look at me. I'm more of the slide in, go behind people, go in the back, be very quiet. I'll speak if spoken to. I'm not one that wants to be seen. And that's what this makes me think of. Ruth is supposed to go to this room, watch all that's going on, but not be seen. For some reason, I have in my mind just a pillar that she's standing behind. Now, that's just in my mind. That's not in the Bible anywhere. That's not in anything I've read. But it just makes me think, how else can you be hidden? You're quiet. You're not going to talk to anybody. You're going to stay in the back, and you're just going to quietly observe. And then, not only that, she's still not done. So after she gets herself ready, she has to go to this threshing floor and not be seen. Then she is to wait unnoticed until Boaz is finished eating and drinking. Then when Boaz is finished, he's going to go lie down. And when he does, Ruth is supposed to take notice of where he goes. Then once she watches Boaz, kind of like reminds me of a stalker. Once she watches him eat his meal, gets up, goes and watches where he lays down, watches him cover up, which we know he's covered up in a sheet because we see later that she uncovers his feet. So I'm thinking it's, to me, a sheet. He's covered in something. Once he's laid down, she's supposed to go and uncover his feet and lay down and wait for Boaz to tell her what to do. And all of this, and of course, I'm thinking when we dress up, what do we usually do? We wear heels, right? We wear shoes that are going to make noise. I don't know what I'm sure she didn't wear heels. But if everybody is laying down on this floor, you're walking across this floor, your feet are going to make noise. So she has to be quiet. She cannot be seen. She still has to be unnoticed. You don't want to startle Boaz. You know he's been drinking. You know he's had a hard day or a long day. They're tired. He's ready to lay down. He's ready to go sleep. You don't want to wake him up. So this has a lot to it. It's almost like everything has to be done in secret. And that puts a lot on Ruth. If she messes up one thing, of course, we all know that Naomi's not going to let her out of the house unless unless she meets her approval. So we know she was washed to Naomi's acceptance. We know she smelled good to Naomi's acceptance. And what she wore was to her acceptance. But once Ruth walks out that door, it's up to Ruth to follow the rest of the plan. And again, we talked a little bit about last week. It reminds me of a teenager. The parents, or even your child, I'd be a teenager. I thought of a teenager. But you prep your child, whether it be for school, to go to church, to go to a friend's house, to go to the grocery store, wherever they're going to go once your house door opens. You prep them as much as you can. Like today, my kids just left. I made sure they had a coat on because it's cold. They had shoes and socks on. I made sure their hair was brushed, their teeth were brushed, their clothes were on right. You make sure you do all these things. But once they open my house door and walk out there, I'm out of control. They have a mind of their own. Now, Matt is with them, and Matt is controlling them, but you all get my point. This is Ruth. Once she leaves Naomi, it's up to her to follow everything to a T. And if she doesn't follow it to a T, this whole plan is going to shatter and fall to pieces. So we're going to see what happens. And by Ruth doing all these things and dressing up, so to speak, she is saying my mourning period is over. And I think that is a really good point. There is no time period of mourning. We don't know how long this has been. And when I think of today, well, not so much today, but when I was growing up, you wore black. When a loved one died, when somebody close to you, I guess it was more family that I remember doing this with, you wore black. Not only to the funeral, you wore it when you went to church the next week, or whenever it fell, you wore black. If you went anywhere, you wore black. Now, we didn't wear black to school, but in other exceptions, you wore black as a sign of I'm sad. And I know a lot of things has changed, but this is what I picture them. For Naomi to say, change your clothes, I want you to wear this certain cloak, it just automatically, my mind goes to nothing black. Now, I don't know what Ruth wore. She may have not worn black. That's just where my mind goes. But the point is, the way she's dressed and the way she smells, the way she looks. In our terms today, she got all dolled up. She got all pretty. She is saying to the world when she walks out that door, hey, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to get married again. I'm ready to go looking for a man. I'm okay. I have put my mourning behind me. When it talks about her bathing and smelling good and dressing in certain clothes, this is pretty close, though, to the same ritual that the women went through when they got married. You didn't wear, unlike today, when I would venture to say, if any of the women watching this went out, we probably have on some type of perfume, body spray, something. Everybody but me probably goes out with makeup on. Very rarely will you see me with makeup, and I know that is a very odd thing. Most women will have makeup. Most women will have their hair done. Most women will walk out of the house looking decent. That's just our normal everyday attire. This was not back then. They had certain rituals they did, and that represented, I can't think of the word I'm thinking for, special things in our lives, like a wedding or like the mourning period. They did that outward appearance so you would kind of know what stage a woman was in. So needless to say, with Ruth being all dressed up like this, it was a special occasion. Now, whether Ruth caught on by now what Naomi was doing, I don't know. But she knew it had to be something pretty special to be all dressed up like this. So now we're going to go back to the threshing floor. And I want to talk about the threshing floor for a minute because it kind of put into perspective to me what was going on. Because when I read these verses and I thought, oh, okay, I picture this big old room when they're at the threshing floor. She walks in, she watches Boaz, and she watches him leave, and she has to kind of scoot through the room quietly and see where he goes and lays down. And that's not it at all. And so the book, Bethlehem Road, that I have been studying with this devotional, gives a detailed description of what happens on the threshing floor. So I'm going to read that part with you, or to you. It says, following the barley and wheat harvest, the grain would be threshed in an area of hard-packed earth or smooth rock. The grain stalks would be tossed in the air with a winnowing fork, and the wind blew the chaff and straw to the side, while the kernels, which are heavier, fell back directly to the floor. The grain would then be collected into piles. Threshing was done during the evening breeze. When the wind had died down, the threshing ended for the day, and the workers would celebrate with food and drink. Again, that kind of just brought things into perspective with me. It wasn't just Boaz. I mean, I thought when I was reading this, how would Naomi know that Boaz was going to be eating and drinking on the threshing floor? Well, it seems like this is during harvest an everyday occurrence. It gives us a background of what's happening in these verses. Naomi knew how all of this worked, and she knew exactly when and what time to send Ruth to the threshing floor. They did this during the evening breeze. So you knew every day at the same time, this is where all the workers were going to be. It was the same routine each and every night. And we see that Ruth goes along with Naomi's plan, and she does what she's told. We don't read of any rebuttal in the Bible. We don't read any fight against Ruth, her not wanting to do this. We just see that she goes and does what she's told. And again, like we've mentioned a lot in this series, there is the mutual respect between these two women. That she respects Naomi enough that she's going to do this for her. And Ruth may know, hey, this is my chance to have a guy. He likes me. He's already told me he was going to protect me. He's rich. He's got a good name. She may be thinking, hey, this may be my chance. In verse 4, it says Boaz will go and lie down. And again, I thought, like I told you before, why? I figured he would leave and go lay down in his house. But no, Boaz sleeps near on the threshing floor, because most threshing floors can be seen from the city, and Boaz wanted to make sure that none of his grain was stolen. What better way to protect the grain than sleep with it, right? You've got people wanting to come steal. You've done all this work. You've separated the seeds from the chaff. And you've got the grain that you want, the good grain, and it's all bundled up. It's real easy for someone just to come and pick a bundle up and walk off. So what better way to protect it than to sleep with it, right? So you're going to hear somebody come up if they're trying to steal something, which there again, that goes back to what we talked earlier. Ruth has to be very careful how she's walking to not wake up Boaz and not to wake up the other workers. The other workers slept there as well. And the reason was to be able to resume work early the next morning. And I kind of thought about that, which we can't do that this day and time. But how many times do we hear our employer or our co-workers or our family members that work come home and say, man, they were late again. Or, oh, so-and-so didn't show up till after lunch today. Or, oh, they didn't call in till 2 o'clock. We already knew they weren't coming. Or, oh, they didn't come to work again today. Or they didn't show up all week. This eliminates that whole excuse. If your workers stay on the threshing floor with you, they eat with you, and they sleep there with you, there is no being late for work. There is no waiting on so-and-so to show up so you can get your job done. They're right there. So, again, all that being in your mind, it's not just Ruth and Boaz. She's got all these workers around as well. So she's got to be quiet. And we see that Ruth is told to go uncover Boaz's feet and lay down with him. Now, could you imagine the talk that would have happened if anyone saw Ruth? If anybody heard Ruth? Now, they all know who Ruth is because his servants, his workers have been asked to protect her in the fields, go the extra mile for her. They all know Boaz likes her. But this is different. She was not invited to this dinner. She was not supposed to be on the threshing floor. And yet it's bedtime. Boaz is asleep. And she has to walk across this floor, uncover, not only just uncover his feet, she has to lay down with him and wait for him to say something to her. This was so risky for Ruth. It could have cost her her life. Like we said, we know Boaz had been drinking, so he may not have been in his right mind if she would have startled him. Or, you know how we are. I mean, my kids do it to me all the time. about 5 days a week, we'll wake up and there'll be a kid looking in your face, not saying a word, but you'll just be on the bed and they'll be looking at you. I was just waiting, Mom, for you to wake up, just looking at you. Could you imagine Boaz, he's down for the night. What would happen if he woke up and bam, there's Ruth right beside you? You don't know what would have happened. So Ruth is taking a chance, a real big chance. There could have been other ways to go about it, but yet this is what Naomi set up. And this is what Ruth did, and we see that she did it to a T. She did everything that Naomi told her to do. She bathed, she smelled good, she put on the clothes Naomi told her to do. She remained unhidden, obviously. She waited until they were done eating. She waited until he went to sleep and found out where he was going to go lay down. She waited for him to get to sleep. She goes over there. She gently uncovers his feet and she lays beside him. And that's where we're going to stop. And the thing I want to take out of this devotional today is just, like we said, Ruth followed Naomi's plan to a T. And we're going to see how it worked out. Can we say the same? We know what God wants us to do. It's hard to do it. Every day we're probably going to fail at it. We sin every day. We know that. But we're still supposed to strive to do exactly what God tells us to do. How many of us can say we're a Ruth? That we are trying to do exactly what we are told to do. No matter the risk, no matter the what if happens if we get caught, doing the right thing. And like we said from the beginning, God's hand is in this. God's hand obviously is watching over Ruth. And the same applies to us today. God's watching over us. God's hand is there. We just have to follow what he says to do. So we're going to stop right there. Next week, we're going to pick up and we're going to do verses 6 through 13. And we're going to see what happens next. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see if Boaz wakes up. We're going to see if Ruth ends up staying there, if she leaves. We will see, I guess you'd say, I don't want to say the rest of the story, but the next part of this story, we're going to see what happens. And like I said, this went a little bit longer than usual, and I apologize for that. But I hope everyone is having a great Valentine's Day. And I hope you all stay warm and have a great week. And I will see you here next week. Thank you for listening.